Hi, folks. Thanks so much. I hope you enjoyed the episode. It was a very intense one, for sure. My name is Patrick Gomez. I'm a senior editor at Entertainment Weekly, but you're not here to hear my name or what I do. You're here to see the incredible Bernard or Arnold or Jeffrey Wright, however you want to know. So please welcome him to the stage. Always nice to see
my son is not just a programmed memory. It's real.
I mean, keeping track of what's real and not must be a little crazy for you, especially when you're filming these things.
I would say that's true just generally right now, trying to keep up with what's real and what's fantastically weird. But, yeah.
Well, great. I know this was, to me, a really interesting episode to watch your work in particular, because we've known for a while now that you've been dealing with multiple personalities, and one of your personalities is something that none of us have experience with, which is being AI.
See, again, I can't tell if you're talking about the character or you're talking about me.
Both actually.
Okay. Keep it.
Backstage was a completely different person. But no, I mean, talk to us, especially going into season 2, knowing what we now know about your character. What was it like to kind of sit down? I mean, do you sit down with the script and say, okay, in this moment, you know, he's 95% sure where he's at, and this moment he's 2% sure he's where he's at, or this percent he's 0%. Like, how does it work in an episode? Once we start kind of seeing how he's recognizing he's playing with time in a show that already plays with time.
It's. I find it to be pretty clearly drawn out on the page. So I just, you know, as I always do, I'm just beholden to what's written. And of course, we also have Jonah Nolan and Lisa Joy, who make themselves available to us before every scene that we shoot. We normally, more complex scenes, like some of the stuff here, we go in a few days ahead and rehearse, right? Right? Yeah. And the less complex stuff, we may not rehearse days prior, but we'll rehearse in the morning. But regardless, either Jonah or Lisa is always at a set when we begin the process of doing any scene, every scene. And so that gives me anyway, the opportunity to just blast them with questions. So I just riddle them until everything that I think that I need to know is satisfied. And you know, that's a good way to pry things out of them that you're not supposed to, that they don't want to let on. But I do think that it's the architecture of the writing was what I was drawn to in the beginning when I read the pilot, that there was almost kind of a mathematical balance to it. And they're very specific in their intent, and the structure is known to them. It's clear for each episode, each scene, but it may relate to other structures in other episodes. So those are some of the things that you have to kind of puzzle through. That said, when we started filming the second season, because you now know Anthony Hopkins is back, and we shot him out over the first 6 weeks or so, 7 weeks. So I was filming scenes from 6 or 7 different episodes within the first 4 weeks, and I had no idea, and neither did he, as to what they related to necessarily. So we would just get the scenes, and he had this code name. It was Old Tom, you know? It was like, Old Tom, okay. Okay, I'll read Old Tom here. And then, so we just did those in piecemeal, and what it kind of emulated was Bernard's kind of confusion with time and space. So it really asked that I just stay as focused on the individual granular moment as I could, because it was really reflective of what he was going through, but at the same time 2, it also allowed me to get some clues into where the trajectory was headed, because I was doing scenes from the last episode. I was like, oh, okay, I think I understand now. Wow, this is going to weave together. But it's you got to stay on your toes. Lisa Joy went to calculus camp as a kid. That tells you something about her. So you got to you bring out your slide rule and kind of work through all this stuff. A lot of the stuff here, Lisa shot this episode, and she's just both of them are just the most generous, brilliant, and inspiring collaborators. And for me, that's everything in this stuff. And you want to do anything for all of us. So that scene, or that series of scenes, once Elsie and Bernard, once Shannon Woodward and I walk into that newly found laboratory, and we head back into the back where we discover Peter Mullen and that whole madness, and we come back out to the time that we exit, except for the stuff with in the observatory. All of the stuff that took place in that front lab, we shot in one shot. We did those. We shot them. We block shot them for the wide scenes. We just did the whole thing. We got there that morning. Lisa's like, okay, because she kind of defers to laughter no matter what. She's like, so we don't have a lot of time, so we're just gonna shoot the whole thing. I'm like, oh, okay. It's like 12 pages. We pulled it off. So we did a little piece of theater. We're going to do a play. We didn't have a lot of time. Only now 19 hours that day. Okay. We'll get there.
Well, thank God you have the theater experience you do then.
Yeah.
So because this is what we just saw, I wanted to talk about this episode specifically for a second, but I want to go back to the beginning of the project and talk to us about how you first heard about it, first got what you got of the script, because this obviously is a show that they like to keep things under wraps a lot. So what was it? How was it pitched to you? How did it come to you? And how did you start to pursue it?
Well, I got a call. My agent said that Jonah wanted to talk to me about this project, and based on the original movie Westworld. HBO was doing it, and Anthony Hopkins was in it. I said, yeah, I think I have time for that call. Yeah. So we Skyped. First, we spoke. He was so cautious. We spoke first over Skype. Then he sent me the script. And I had I think it was like a 3-hour window to unlock the script. And this assistant sent to me, I was like, yo, man, the World Cup final is starting right now. I'm not going to be reading this thing. So they they delayed. I got a little wider window to read it. And I read the script. And again, it was clear. A few things were clear. One, the structure, as I talked about, but also there's an efficiency to the language. But at the same time, this wonderful lyricism and poetry. And it was clear that this world that they were creating had infinite possibilities just by nature of the construct. And as I read Bernard, I just read him as kind of, an everyman, he's kind of the old, good old Bernard there, just, spinning his hamster wheel, pay him no mind, And I got the sense that perhaps he would be kind of an understated white rabbit who would lead us through these various doors of perception. And so then Jonah and I Skyped again a couple of times, and I ultimately I sent him an email, said, yeah, man, I'm on board. He said, I'm really pleased I'm really excited to go on this journey with you, in which we will discover that Dr. Ford is actually a creation of Bernard Lowe. And he said, close but no cigar, Colonel. So it was a pretty it was a pretty straightforward process. Yeah.
So you start filming. How much in advance, you were making guesses even then? How much of it especially in the early days, was kind of like you said you're doing now, which was just playing the scene. How much of it was that, and how much of it was knowing where you guys were going?
Well, there's no source material here other than the imaginations of our showrunners. There's obviously the original premise, the original film, but clearly we've gone a few hours beyond that. So it's really just coming out of their incredibly fertile heads. So they have a very long-term arc that they've already constructed. How we get there, they have an outline for. However, the wonderful thing about working on these long-form dramas, and I've worked on Boardwalk Empire before, is you start to develop this kind of sympathetic relationship between actor and writer, and you really feel, obviously you're informed by what they're writing, but at a certain point you feel that they're starting to be informed too by what you're bringing to it. And so, we know where we want to go with it, but it may take, turns in ways that they hadn't expected. I think one of the things that they play with too is pairings in terms of what characters might slot together well, and what might be born out of that. One thing that has been really clear to me, though, in that regard, in terms of what they're asking us to do, and they're asking us to do like everything. It's like, yeah, this time do it with a half gainer. Knock your head on the back of the diving board and then laugh as you flip forward. Do that. Okay, roll camera. But what was clear to me, and what's been really gratifying, is that it was pretty obvious that they had seen pretty much everything that I'd done, like all of my work. So like, you remember that scene? And would you? Yeah, we're gonna do a little bit of that. And so they kind of crafted this character over the first 2 seasons, but also extending out around just having me stretch and revisit, various points of my body of work, and then kind of add new limbs onto it and distort those, and then just bring it, and that's a really, really gratifying place to be, to know, for one, that your work has been received and respected by other artists of their skill set, of their capacity, and that they want to bring you on board in a new environment. I did Boardwalk Empire, but I came in the 4th season, I think, after everybody else had done the grunt work. Like, yeah, I'll have the champagne, please. But it was exciting for me because the challenge of taking the risk of starting something that had huge expectations behind it, starting it from scratch, and playing a fairly central role in that. And so that trust that's engendered, and trust that's expressed to you by folks like Joan and Lisa is a great gift. And I talk about this all the time, man. Done this long enough to know that the most critical thing in any situation is the circle of people that you're working with, because it can be one of like the bottom circles of hell if it's not the right folks, because we invest we don't have anything else to invest but ourselves in it, our emotions, our cornerstone memories, all of that stuff that we want to bring to bear, ideas, aspirations, whatever it is, and we kind of lay it out there. And some people take that and strike a match, set it on fire, not in a good way. In this sense, it's respected, it's nurtured. We nurture each other, we respect one another, we push one another, and we do it within an atmosphere of total mutual concern. Not that it's like kind of coddling and all that. We bust each other's asses we push each other. But it's one of the I've had a few fantastic collaborations in my career, and this is in that top pile of those things, and it means everything.
what was the key for you, especially walking into the pilot script? Like you said, you kind of saw him as the White Rabbit, as you know, the everyman. So what was the key to unlocking the specificity of the character that early on?
Well, again, just going back to the page, and also just Lisa would say, okay, you know, Bernard's he's very modest, you know, mild mannered, you know, he's just he understated was what she would say. But again, you really build that together. I built a lot of, you know, that together with Anthony Hopkins in the beginning, because this, I think we shot the first day of the series. For the first 2 days, he and I working on some of the Ford Bernard stuff that you see in the pilot. And like in anything, the relationships or the character is a reflection of the relationships that he has. And so that relationship with Tony was one of the, you know, the first, you know, pieces of clay that I molded in terms of shaping who he was. And, you know, there were certain aesthetic choices, you know, the glasses and this kind of professorial thing that was a reflection of Ford's professorial thing that we find out later is actually a direct reflection of Arnold and all of that. But there were elements just kind of playing with everyone else's collaborative contributions, from wardrobe and collaborating with them and props and all of that, and what's on the page, and then just building. I will say this. I went back and watched the first pilot before the second season, started, because I was like, when is this show coming back on, man? I want to see something. So I watched that, and I was like, wow, the growth, the evolution of those characters for all of us, and the performances for all of us from that point was just astounding. I mean, it's just, and that's one thing that I find gratifying about long-term dramas, which I didn't think that I would appreciate. I thought I'd be bored to death working on a TV show and revisiting the same character. But as you mentioned theater, we do the same play, you know, every night. Sometimes we change, but you do the same. And you know what I enjoy about that is I have the opportunity to get it right. Have the opportunity, it's like, you know, because you get the audience reaction one night. Yeah, that's not going to work. Throw that away. That works. And just shaping the performance night after night after night until finally you get it and you go, yeah, that's not going to get better than that. I'm going to go have a drink. Okay, see you tomorrow, and I'll try to do it again. But likewise, when you have great writers on a show like this or Boardwalk Empire, you get to grind down and revisit and shape, and they're again shaping with you, and you get to evolve to a place where you really start to feel that the characters just sits neatly within your skin, or whatever skin it is that you've shaped for them. And that's what I was seeing when I went back and watched that and saw what everyone's doing now. It's just that evolution.
I'm going to get more specifics on the process and all of that, because I've got some questions from you guys out there in a little bit. But I want to take a step back for a little bit and kind of hear more about how young Jeffrey got into acting. When did you first realize that acting was something you were interested in?
I think I realized that it was something I was interested in before I acted on it. I didn't start acting till I was in college, till I was a junior in college. I was a political science major in college. People used to ask me, you know, you're a political science major. Well, what made you go into theater? I think, why don't you just go tune into CNN right now, and I think it will be abundantly clear. Just check out that Singapore footage, you know, big time theater, clown shows. But when I was a kid, I think the last piece that I acted in before being in college was like the Christmas pageant, like, you know, 4th grade. You know, I played one of the 3 wise men, and I was supposed to bring frankincense, and I brought frankenstench. I think that just traumatized me, man. I couldn't get that line right, and so I didn't go back. And I was I was kind of hesitant about being on stage, and would have these like recurring dreams that the words wouldn't come. Again, going back to that one Christmas pageant thing. And funnily enough, the guy I grew up in D.C., which is part of the reason why hey, yo, there you go. What part of D.C. from? Huh?
Pheasant Street. Near Adamsburg.
Oh, okay, cool. I grew up in Southeast. So obviously, a lot of politics going on there, which is, part of the reason why I, political science and all that stuff, and why I'm still kind of a political politics junkie. But so the guy who was in my class from the time I was 10 years old until graduated high school, who was like the actor who would do every play that came, he's now a U.S. senator. So yeah, it just kind of makes some odd sense. But what my mom, I owe everything to my mom, but my mom used to take me to the theater. Every play that came to the Ford's Theater or the National Theater in D.C. or the Kennedy Center, these touring shows, we not every, but most we would go to, so everything from Give 'Em Hell Harry, I think with James Whitmore, and to Annie, it was a one-man show about Paul Robeson. There was I think it was Avery Brooks. There was a one-man show about King that I think it was Paul Winfield did. There was Bubbling Brown Sugar. There were just a whole variety of plays. Pearly, all of this great stuff. And it was one of the best nights of my childhood, going to those things, And I remember I would have this attraction to the world behind the stage. And it wasn't like the kind of tech side of it. It was, I just imagined that the world that existed on the stage extended back there, that this world had been created, for me, so completely. And I was just drawn into the magic of it. And kind of it existed in the back of my head about, my friends from school will tell you that I used to act in the hallways of the school, because I would do impersonations of teachers and coaches and other students, and sometimes to their approval, sometimes not. And so I was always kind of doing that stuff. But it was only until I got into college, my junior year, that I took an acting class. And the first day of that class, I said, you know what, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do. And my mom was like, huh? My mom was a lawyer. She's like, yeah, okay, when are you taking the LSAT, dude? Yeah.
So you had a short stint at NYU, yeah?
2 months, yeah.
What made you want to go there, and what made you want to leave?
Well, it was a quick study. That was. Well, I when I left college, went to Amherst, went back home to D.C. Who went to? You went to Amherst?
No, from Amherst.
There you go, bro.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Happy Valley, baby. So I went back to D.C. and I did a little cattle call thing. It was in the Washington Post. You could, all the theater companies would come to the arena stage. It was like, the kind of central regional theater there, and you did a couple monologues, So I did that, and I got a call to do children's theater. They're like, yeah, I'll do that, So I did children's theater, like right out, for that fall, and I waited tables at night, and I had all this cash. So after I finished doing children's theater about 9 in the morning, I go to the racetrack. I go up to the Pimlico, and I study the horses and the characters, and make a little money too occasionally, and then. But then I ended up doing a play at the Shakespeare, Folger Shakespeare Theater. Michael Kahn gave me a job there. All's Well That Ends Well, like non-speaking thing, third stone from this left. And then there was a play at Arena Stage called Les Blancs. That was Lorraine Hansberry's last play. And the part had been written for Hal Scott, who was directing it. And I read about it in their, seasonal description, and I went over to, I was like, hey, I see this part here. I'd like to read for that part. They're like, who are you, son? You know, I said, no, I want to read for the part, you know? And so I guess because I'd done this thing with the children's theater, with this theater company, they say, oh, okay, yeah, give me an audition. So I read for them, like, cool, boom. And they sent me up to New York to read for it. I got the part, and that was my first, like, you know, significant role. Zelda Fitchhandler, who founded Arena Stage and still ran the theater company then, had just taken over Tisch, the acting program there. And after I did that part, she said, you must come to NYU. So what happened? Hey, Zelda? No. She passed away, I think, last year, a couple of years ago. An incredible woman, and this the gatekeeper for me. So she gave me a full scholarship to NYU, and I went up. You know, that's how I moved to New York, July of 1988. She gave me a full scholarship, and I duly thanked her by leaving after 2 months. But the reason I left was to go do this play Le Blanc, which was going to the Huntington Theater in Boston, and then was to come back to New York to the Lincoln Center. That didn't happen, but we went up and did it in Boston, and I just felt really drawn to this play. It was a wonderful piece, but the circumstances around it, the part had been written for Hal. I loved it. It had this. It was set in it was her response to Genet's Les Nègres, and so it was set in this mythical African country undergoing transition from colonial rule to independence, and so it was all this stuff that I totally grooved to, and as well, I was working with an incredible group of actors, some who were these veteran actors from the theater company of Arena Stage. Richard Beamer was in it, who played Tony in thank you, West Side Story. Tony Todd was playing my older brother. Basil Wallace. There's a number of, and Lilia Scala. You know Lilia Scala? Lilia Scala won or was nominated for an Oscar for her performance in Lilies of the Field with Sidney Poitier, and she was an older woman then when she did that play, when she did that movie, when she did the play with me. You can imagine she was in her 90s. I'll just tell you quick. Can I tell you a quick story about this? Because this is this because it speaks to why I left school, because I enjoyed. I did. There were things like voice. There was a games teacher named Paul Walker who I was really drawn to and inspired by. There was kind of the breakdown of Shakespeare and poetry and things like that that I drew a lot from. And I enjoyed working with my peers, but working more as kind of an apprentice, to these other veteran actors, and also these directors who were also teachers, I just found more beneficial for me. I couldn't wait to get out of school when I graduated college. Anyway, I was like, man, you're going right back? So that drew me to it. And then just the idea of kind of grinding it, and digging it out of the dirt every night seemed more beneficial for me. And I had the opportunity because I had this gig. But when we were in Boston, so Lilia Scala, so it was middle of winter, Boston. It gets colder there than it does here. It was like, it was frozen, snowing one night, snowfall. And I'm walking from near Fenway Park to our theater, Huntington Theater. And I'm walking, and I look ahead of me, like through the fog of the snow, and I see this old woman. And she's like, just like jogging. I'm like, is that Lilia? And she's like jogging through the snow to work. And I'm like, holy cow, this woman is incredible. And she said to me one day, she said, this was after we'd done the play in D.C. and after we'd almost completed the run in Boston, she said, Jeffrey, and she was incredible. She had come over from Austria. She as well had been, I think, the first certified woman architect in Austria. She came over here, acting career. She said to me, she said, Jeffrey, she said, you're good. She said, you can make it. She said, but you must work hard. success will not drop out of the sky like a ripe apple. You must work. Verbatim. And I was like, oh, boom, you know? And it was just those types of gifts along the way that taught me, you know, my way forward. And it was also, again, going back, you know, these directors that I work. I'll tell you another interesting story if you'll indulge me.
This is your platform. I'm
Okay.
just here to
Okay.
look pretty.
Well, well done. Bravo. So I talk about, you know, that first play that I did in school with a guy named Kevin Frazier, who was a student year behind me. He adapted a play called a play out of a book called Bloods about Black Vietnam veterans. He gave me that gig. I auditioned, you know, we did that. Hal Scott, who gave me the gig in D.C. A guy named Dennis Scott. When I came back from Boston, the first audition I had was for a play up at Yale Rep, Playboy of the West Indies, based on English Playboy of the Western World. Dennis Scott, he gave me that gig. Paul Walker, who was this teacher that I was really drawn to at NYU. All of them died of AIDS. Every one of them. And so when I did Angels in America, which was like after about 7 years after I graduated and I graduated college, and after 7 years of working primarily in the theater with the film here and there, you know, it was just, that was an homage, as it was for all of us, but specific to my journey, it was really about my, you know, the people who made me, who kind of birthed me into the theater and birthed me into the craft of acting. So for whatever reason I left NYU, it all made perfect sense.
Well, and I know your Tony, Emmy, and Golden Globe, I know you share with them in knowing that they had that role in helping you bring that character to life.
Yeah, no question.
So I want to get to some of your questions here, and one of them is one of your earlier film roles. Sheila wanted to know.
Hey,
hi.
Sheila. Oh boy. Thank you. Thank you.
That might be the best compliment you can get. Do you foresee bringing to the screen another gripping biographical performance or emotionally challenged that's emotionally as challenging as Basquiat?
Oh, thanks. No. I don't know. At this point, I'm not kind of projecting out into other kind of biographical characters that I might play. Something may come along. There was a part that I wanted to play, that I wanted to develop, and in fact, at one point was working with Milos Forman to piece this together because it was a piece that he had long wanted to do, and that was a bio flick about Alexander Pushkin, whose great-grandfather was brought to Peter the Great. He's the great he's one of the four Russian literary lions. He's the poet of the four. His great-grandfather was brought as a gift to Peter the Great from, I think he's described as Namibian, like kind of, not Namibian, as Abyssinian, but it was kind of this non-specific in terms of the exact, region or place that he was from. But he was, and his name was Hannibal, great-grandfather, came to be like this favorite of Peter the Great, who, ushered in certain Western ideals into Russia, and his great-grandson becomes, after marrying into nobility and all that, great-grandson becomes this great Russian artist, and as some people describe him, the quintessential Russian. Like his poetry is like the song of the Russian heart. And I just thought, I was like, wow, because I was renting this place when early in New York, St. Mark's had these great books, and I saw this Negro Peter the Great, and I started reading his short stories, and I was like, whoa, because he has this unfinished homage to his great grandfather called The Negro, which he died in the midst of writing it, or he didn't finish it and then he died. He died in a duel. Just crazy character, man. It's like half revolutionary, like, half full gambler. It was like women, wine, revolution, and song. That's in and the occasional duel. He was out of his mind. Like, yeah. So, but we never quite pulled that together.
Well, I think Sheila and I could agree that we'd love to see that actually come together. So.
Yeah.
Or something political.
So,
Political junkie as well.
yeah. Well, he was as well. He was a part of the Decembrist movement, or he was kind of like on the outside, but he was kind of their poet voice. And the Decembrists were like the precursor really to the Bolshevik Revolution.
Ryan Jarek, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Yes, there we go. Wanted to know, filming season 1, did you know that you were a host? When did you finally realize that giant? I mean, obviously, there's many twists and turns, but that was a big one for you and your character.
See, I hadn't gotten to that episode yet, and spoiler alert. No, when did I found out after the first episode when we came back? So I didn't know during the pilot. Again, I just assumed, there's just old Bernard over there, And then Lisa Joy pulled me into her office when we were rehearsing to shoot episode 2 of the first season, and she said, and she's like brilliant. She went to Harvard Law, went Stanford first, Harvard Law, left Harvard, went to this consulting firm, McKinsey or something, and then just bounced around. Then she was in the L.A. District Attorney's office, and then somewhere else, and then wanted to write and wrote a spec script and sent it to some place, and they were like, yeah. It's like, okay, see ya, and left all that behind and started writing. And again, went to calculus camp as a kid. I mean, this is the kind of person she is. Brilliant. It took her about 8 minutes to get the words out to describe this reveal. She's like, okay, so all right, this is complicated. Okay, how do I say this without okay, it's very complicated. Okay, yeah. You're not the man you think you are. It's like, oh, okay.
Now, did that change anything for you, or did you just continue to play as you had been before?
Yeah, I more or less played as I had been, but it did. One, I understood the trajectory. I understood that certain scenes were Arnold, this kind of archetype, and certain scenes were Bernard. Otherwise, it would have made sense. So, but in terms of the style of playing, no. Except there were moments that were kind of like little fluorescent mileposts along the way that I kind of would highlight a little bit. But it was highlighted in the script. Moments where if you remember, talking to Teresa about the behavior of the hosts, and there's these little moments that were little glimmers. Or sometimes we would play with things as though you come into the scene and it was though Bernard were kind of coming out of sleep mode. They were just these little subtle things. And people, would read certain people. Yeah, I knew it all along. It's like, yeah, well, we're kind of telling you.
So watch closely.
Yeah.
Rochelle wants to say, first of all, they're a big Twitter fan.
Oh, yeah. Danger, Will Robinson. Danger.
And second, they want to know, who do you enjoy portraying more, Arnold or Bernard? The good, the evil? Do you look at him in that way?
No, don't look at him like that. I enjoy Bernard more because I don't spend as much time with Arnold. And it's really not about him. I mean, the show is really about his ghost, and he still very much has a presence in the show now. But I enjoy it all. But Bernard's my guy. The scenes that we have this season between Dolores, Evan, and I are a little bit of combination of both of them. Which was some complicated math to kind of work through. It's like, okay, I was like, we were reading this and it was like, what's exactly is going on here? It's like, Lisa's like, okay, well, you're actually Bernard, who's trying to build toward Arnold and you're not getting there. And so it was, you're playing a character who's based on another character, and at this time that character is actually trying to develop into the character that he's based on, and then he's fucking up along the way. And it's like it was, how it was. So then how do I not play the character? So so you're asking me to not play it, to play the character but don't get it right, and then circle back to the character that you know very well, which is based on the character that you're not getting right. Okay, roll camera. Yeah.
Well, that kind of leads right into these questions that I'm going to combine a little bit. Lorraine, I think I got that right, Hope, and Delilah both had questions about how you prepare and how you kind of keep track of what time you're in. So talk to us about kind of keeping track of where am I right now. And you mentioned a little bit earlier that you kind of ask a lot of questions, but do you mess with the script? Like in terms of script work or stuff like that, how do you keep track?
Oh, man. I mean, I gave up. I just gave up. I just said, okay, just surf it. Just like surrender to it. Because I got, again, we would get these scripts. So, and I'm not talking specifically, I'll talk a little bit specifically about this stuff because it's another thing. But we get the scripts, got the first script for season 2. And you get the script and you've got a password, because you got to unlock it. So you get that, boom, okay. And then you get the rewrites, and you get the rewritten pages, and then you get the collated new script, and that's another password. And you're like, oh shit, okay. Then you get that. Then, okay, here are all the scenes that you're shooting with old Tom, with Anthony Hopkins. So then I'd get another 6 scenes from 6 different scripts. 6 different passwords, and I'm like, God, okay, and I got to piece all this, and so it was literally trying to just piece together, and you don't have paper anymore, so you're like, you got a bunch of windows that you're trying to and then you're getting rewrites on top of those, and so it was, at one point I just said, you know what, relax, man, just get whatever you got, work with that. The last thing they sent you, don't worry about anything else, man. Because it was really just the logistics of trying to it was just, you would waste 45 minutes, So, again, it was just kind of like surrendering to the moment and trusting the process and taking it from there. Because then you didn't, particularly with the stuff with Tony, you didn't know half. It's like little flecks, of color that when the rest of the canvas is still to be painted, But this stuff was really interesting. Was really kind of fun too. The stuff in the flashbacks and all of that, because it's different timelines that were kind of cross weaving, but it's also different scenes, right? So you have to kind of play editor to some extent in your head, because people can't just kind of stand there with your mouth open confused. It has to relate to something, and you have to understand how the language that you're speaking in this scene, in this timeline, relates to the language that you may have been speaking in the scene that you're referring to through your memories. So that was fun to play. It was definitely, kept me on my toes, because the idea, again, is not just to toy with the audience. The idea is that this machine holds these memories in a hard drive and has access to them, and they're only addressed according to time. So if they're de-addressed for whatever reasons, then they kind of exist in the same place, in the same perceived time for him. It also is a situation that you can kind of mimic with certain hallucinogens. What happened to the hands on the watch? So that's where Bernard is. He's kind of cyber tripping. So I fell back on personal memory.
Well, I know that just as you spend so much time dissecting the script, we could spend so much more time dissecting your work in the show. But unfortunately, we don't have that time. I really want to thank all of you for your questions, for being here today. But most of all, I want to thank you, Jeffrey, for imparting your memories with us.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. Thank you. Please make sure to continue watching Westworld on Sundays. And obviously, if you're an Emmy voter, keep in mind, lead actor, amazing performer right here.